Love it or hate it, if you're in the educational field, it's unavoidable. It's called professional development. One person determined to make it worth your while is Eric Rowles of Leading to Change in Charlotte, North Carolina. Eric is a nationally recognized trainer, speaker, and consultant who's worked with more than 150,000 young people, adults, administrators, professional, and policymakers for the past 15 years. We welcome to our studio Eric Rowles with Leading to Change Incorporated, President and CEO. Hello, Eric. It's great to have you here today.
Thanks very much, Ted. Great to be able to be online with you. If I'm not in the same room, at least we're virtually connected.
We're connected more than that way, Eric.
That's right.
I just want to say how much I admire your work over the years and how your youth focus is just so revolutionary and just so engaging that we just had to bring you on our show.
I appreciate that. We've written out the check to ED101 for that endorsement already, so we're in good shape. It's mutual. It's great to be able to be on here, and I'm glad that you're providing the service. Thanks.
It's our pleasure. I wanted to speak a little bit today about some of your professional development programs, and I've seen several After School Alliance. I've seen that you've worked across the country. Could you share with us real quickly some of the people you've worked with over the years and some of the conferences you normally attend?
Absolutely, sure, you bet. I think we started Leading to Change really because we didn't want to have yet another boring, painful professional development experience for many of us. I come from a combination of working in juvenile halls where I got my start as a master trainer. I got a chance to be able to travel across the country and working with folks from YMCAs to board of directors of for-profit organizations to school districts to working with community coalitions who really were trying to figure out where do we go with the direction of a community movement. And all there ties into is part of that change element or part of that training element is trying to be able to get people from point A to point B and do it in a way that gets them excited, gets them motivated, and gets them walking away with something specific that they can use. And so that was really the focus that we have approached with our professional development work. And we have been fortunate to be able to work really across the country as well. I think we're known for probably three specific things: cutting edge content, kind of what's out there that folks haven't even heard of yet. And I've got some examples for you today.
That's what we're here for.
The second thing is it's high energy. This is not feel good, touch, everybody feels kumbaya, but it's more of let's get people up and out of their training. And most importantly, it's really around the idea of walk away with some specific tools and content. And so some of the folks we've had a chance to be able to work with in South Carolina, the South Carolina After School Alliance, of course, is one of our good friends. One of our greatest friends there in South Carolina is the South Carolina Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy, and Forrest Alton and his amazing staff that are pushing the agenda that we need to be pushing across the country. The National Youth at Risk Conference, we just got done finishing up, very, very pleased for the last 3 weekends, the North Carolina Teaching Fellows Program, working with new teachers and training them how to be engaging in the classroom. There's kind of some of the other hats that we wear. We are very heavily involved with the Workforce Development Initiative, and so we're trying to be able to engage community members back to work, working with them in that kind of way. And we're known for a lot of our work around diversity and inclusion, and more importantly, bringing a social justice focus to the work that you and I do on a day-to-day basis with young people, with providers, and with professionals. So we're really, really fortunate. We're glad to be able to do the work, and we know there's a whole lot more work that needs to be done.
There is, and unfortunately there's been silos or separations of youth development and youth programming and the different groups that work with them. And I've always appreciated the way that you've been focusing on getting through those barriers between after school and regular school and community and school partnerships and social justice with generational studies. And it is my big hope that we'll see more and more work towards that way. And maybe we should talk talk about organizing a conference in the spring, or try to get
Yeah,
some of our friends together to have a big hoedown, as they say in these parts of the woods.
there you go.
I
You know, just as one thing with there, I want to reference, I think probably our approach to that, of that multi-siloed approach, is probably two parts. One is you've got to know the language, and there's an absolute different vernacular that, so the folks are going to be watching this broadcast. If they're coming from schools, they know that some of their schools, some of the language they're using is really around 21st century schools, 21st century skills. They're really, some of them are still utilizing a lot of that asset development based language. That's a really different set of language than there is in terms of folks that are working maybe a healthcare field and in prevention. And when mental health, they're really looking at resistance and coping skills and resiliency methods, and that's going to be really different than the language that a law enforcement officer uses. So,
Absolutely. And I was just going to say that, it's students are suspects in law enforcement's view. And that was something when I worked with law enforcement, trying to get them in the school saying, look, these are kids, they're not suspects.
absolutely so. Absolutely so.
Um, Real quickly, just to go over some of the training you all offer, you have one on generationals, on baby boomers and XY relationships. Can you talk real quickly about your generational programs?
Yeah, yeah. I think when we designed the Generational Crossroads program, it was designed to give space for all four of the generations. There's four generations that are still at work right now: that silent generation, that boomer generation, Generation X, and millennials. And so giving space for each one of these generations to be represented, to be acknowledged, and to really share with their colleagues, this is what makes them tick, and this is also what ticks them off. And so when you put those two together, it becomes a training that is really based on in the workplace environment. And what do I need to know about a millennial or an Xer or a boomer or even one of our silent generations? And what do I need to know about this upcoming generation that in essence is coming right after these millennials? There's a generation that's coming up. They're being called either the digital natives, the iGen. They're also being called the homelanders. This is all synonymous with folks that are about 12 years old and younger now. So we're already starting looking at this new next workforce. But for folks that are listening to the broadcast, and you may have heard us say this before, four things with your generations. Number one, with your silent generation, give them absolute honor and respect for the path that they've made, knowing that loyalty is everything. For boomers, you need to give them absolute feedback. And what I mean by that is tell them what you're working so hard to be able to do. For Xers, give them freedom and choice. Without freedom and choice, they will run from your company very, very quickly. There's reasons behind this. The science and the data show it. And millennials, their oxygen they have to have is social, networked feedback. What that means is allow me to hang out with the people that I work with on a day-to-day basis, but you've got to give me feedback. So what we get a chance to be able to do in this generational crossroads is not only kind of get to all of these different elements, but also we bring the music. So we bring about 60 years of music and bring it to in about 6 minutes. So everything from Marvin Gaye to Drake and T.I. to maybe a little bit of maybe even a little bit of Garth Brooks.
That's awesome. That's one of my favorites that you do. You also address the issue of race, which is something that to some people is almost frightening. Could you talk a little bit about Beyond Race and about the program that you've created to talk about the issues of race and how it affects young
Sure.
people?
Absolutely. We have about 25 trainers that are in our network of trainers, and we all come from different elements of training around diversity and culture and in inclusion within a workplace setting. I've worked with the Anti-Defamation League and the National Conference of, used to be NCCJ, so National Conference of Communities and Justice. And for our approach to this, we wanted to be able to have a time when We could have an honest conversation about diversity that goes beyond race. We don't leave it, but we get a chance to go even beyond it. Because we know that for many of us, when we think of diversity, we think of really just what is the kind of either the color of my skin or the ethnicity that I check. But it's so much deeper than that. As a trainer, my job and our job is to be able to make that conversation a safe place where folks can be real with each other. That is not about attack, it's not about guilt, and it's not even about trying to say if folks have been in the wrong, but it is about acknowledging privilege. And for many of us who are in this kind of diversity training work, the work really comes down to trying to get people to realize that we've got a lot in common with each other. We've got a lot of difference from each other, and there's power and privilege that's tied into there. So that beyond race approach that we get a chance to be able to work is high energy training that is designed for folks to get to the reality of what they're working through, but also about some of their identities that most folks may not even know. And it might be around their faith, it might be around their orientation, it might be around where they've grown up for most of their life as well. Last to tell you about that is that was actually one of the key elements that we've trained to now all of the North Carolina teachers, how to integrate a social justice approach into your classroom. Whether you're working in history or in science or math, how you can integrate social justice into your work as a teacher, as an educator. And we've had a chance to do that with some of the other silos that we talked about as well.
That's outstanding. And also the role of forgiveness for the classroom teacher is an important part of classroom management that hopefully we're going to see more and more develop over the years. You also have programs on virtual realities and music, powering actions, true colors. Could you talk a little more about these?
Yeah, so just your quick nutshell around those is that, again, if you're doing professional development, it should not be painful. Does not have to be painful. And if we're doing something around conflict in the workplace, one of the ones that we kind of developed and based around a couple different models is the idea of your own different leadership style and how that deals with conflict. And some of us run from conflict, some of us thrive off of conflict, some of us try to be able to navigate our way through conflict as well. And so kind of a professional development session called True Colors, which is really about how you work through that, more importantly, with your colleague. That music and media is probably one that we get asked to do so very often because we're on that cutting edge of what especially our young people are listening and watching and listening to. And so we will spend time with a staff about how you access the music and how you get it even before they do. So we've got a couple of tools and tricks up our sleeve that we want to be able to pass on to staff about what if I could get you the music 3 weeks before they ever heard it, legally and free. And that's the key pieces there. And so the other element that we do is we also bring in, how do you bring in movie clips? No VCR anymore, no DVD and having to be able to kind of find that little spot in that movie. No, there's some great tools that are out there. And we share people with how do you bring in today's movies before they even get to DVD, how you can bring from the movie theater into that after school program, the movie theater into that educational setting. And so one of those, and we'll get a chance to be able to show a couple of slides up on the screen a little bit later on here, but one of those is a great site that we love to be able to reference. They're called Wing Clips. WINGCLIPS.com. It's one of our tools, one of our tricks of the trade we like to share with folks as well. It's a free legal place where you can get movie clips that are already edited in today's movies. Karate Kid, Despicable Me, and things that aren't even out yet. There's a great movie that's going to come out next year called Rio. So after you replay this broadcast about 20 times as well, it might eventually be catch up with Rio, but we've actually got video clips to Rio that we use with young people. And it ties into that millennial mentality, which is if I can see it, if I can hear it, and if I can touch it, then maybe I'll come back to you. But I've got to see it, I've got to touch it, and I've got to be able to get a chance to be able to experience it as well too. And so those are probably some good ones to